All right, welcome to lesson number 4 for ancient Egypt. In this one, we are just going to be talking about the pyramids for however long that takes. Again, hopefully I keep this in the short side, unlike the last lesson, and I apologize for that. So, anyways, the reason why the last lesson was long is because I realized I didn't want to split that into 2 lessons just to come into the pyramid lesson. So you got an 18-minute lesson instead of a 10 to 12-minute lesson. And this one, well, we'll see if we can keep in the 12 or 15-minute range. Anyways, I'm already talking too much. So, if you're looking at this is the first slide I show when we start talking about the pyramids. Now, one of the bellwether questions I asked leading up into this is, what do you do for someone, when you feel very grateful to someone? What do you do for them? Like, what's the things that you think of? And I feel like it's a good time to have a discussion on that because, well, one of the things that definitely we see in civilizations that's very helpful to have is a sense of gratitude. But it also leads into why the pyramids were built. Why did the Egyptians start building pyramids? From what we understand, it all started with a sense of gratitude, doing something for someone that you very much appreciated and you were very thankful for what they did for you. In this case, it was actually building a pyramid for one of the kings of Egypt that everybody just loved. The people chose to build him a pyramid. Anyways, I'll come back to that in a second because that's getting into the next slide. Right now, I'd just like to talk about the pyramids, just little things here and there about the shape of them and just how many there are and things like that. If you're like me and you were taught about the pyramids, say, elementary school, middle school, high school, even into college, you keep getting this idea that all the pyramids there were just the 3 you see in the picture on the bottom, the pyramids of Giza, which, by the way, by name are the pyramids of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. And we actually talked about Menkaure in the last lesson. He was the guy that had his wife with her arm around him in the affectionate pose. So, but there are actually dozens of pyramids. I'm actually not sure in my head how many there are total. I think I count like 27 or so in this picture, but again, that's just going off of that. And I don't know if that one's actually correct. It's just the best map I could find at the time to put in this PowerPoint to just show you, hey, there's a lot of pyramids. Look at all the pyramids there are that you can go see if you go to that area or go to Egypt today to go on a nice little vacation and just take a tour of all these pyramids, which you can do. Anyways, that being said, those are the 3 biggest. That's why we always show them, but there are more than that, and we'll talk about them as we go through things. Not all of them, of course, but a few of them. So, where was I? Oh, I'd like to talk about the shape. From what we know and what I've read, the shape of the pyramid has a lot to do with the Egyptians' creation story, how they believe the world was created. Basically, you have the goddess, the sky goddess and the earth god, Nut and Geb, and right now I'm forgetting who's who. But they get together, yada, yada, yada type stuff, and they form the earth. And just how the yada, yada, yada stuff goes, without giving you any imagery here, sorry, is that all the stuff that is going to be making the earth kind of comes down in a pyramid form to a point and then funnels out in a pyramid form out and creates the earth. So, and that's the Egyptian creation story, so I understand. And that's why the pyramids are built in the way they are, is to kind of honor the idea of the creation of the world. So, another thing to know about the pyramids, and I can't remember if I mentioned this earlier. I think I did maybe at the very beginning of class in the first lesson I did here. I'll mention it again. Those pyramids were on the outside had polished limestone. That limestone has since eroded away or been taken off or something. Most likely eroded away would be my guess. But they're also capped with gold. So that when the sun hit them just right, especially when you're getting towards dusk or into dawn, it would shine on those pyramids to where they would reflect the light and just kind of illuminate the horizon. Something definitely meant to bury or a symbol of the gods type thing. It'd be kind of crazy to live at the time period just to see what that looked like when the sun hit them just right. Now, I began by talking about the very first pyramid and why it was built. This is the very first pyramid ever built. Not as big as the other 3 that we're looking at, but still fairly large. And it's called the Pyramid of Djose. And I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that right. The Pyramid of Djose was built by the people of Egypt with their grand architect, a guy named Imhotep. Now, Imhotep, by the way, there's a statue of Imhotep on the left. Then you have a large statue of Jose on the right there. So, but basically from what we understand, Jose was just a wonderful leader. The people loved him. He did very right by them. They were very ingratiated to him. They wanted to give him essentially a going away present, to prove to the gods that he deserved a wonderful afterlife. So they, of their own free will, and with the leadership of Imhotep and his guidance, built this pyramid. This isn't something, at least from what I understand, that Jose said, "You will do this for me. This is what I want." They did it in thanks to him, out of gratitude, because according to their belief system, they thought that anything that you're buried with, and then kind of the grandness of your life, should be showed in your burial, so the gods can see that as an evidence of, "Hey, Osiris, judge of the dead, you need to give this guy a good afterlife." So the funny thing, though, is after this, you get this idea of like every king of Egypt was like, "Well, you guys like me too, right? So you should be able to build me a pyramid too, right?" So, and all of a sudden, something that turned out to where it was just a very awesome thing to do for the people, to a leader that they really loved, became this entitled thing that leaders got. It was like, "I want that awesome afterlife too, and you guys deserve to give this to me, and therefore you will. And I'm going to build an even bigger one because I'm a better king than he was." So anyways, you got a lot of stuff that happens during this time period. And like I said, I ended the last lesson talking about how Old Kingdom kind of had some good feelings to it. Well, that definitely shows how, yes, you still get some egotistical and some not so good feelings to it, you could say. But this first one, yeah, great story behind it, essentially. Now, here are a bunch of other pyramids that were built in ancient Egypt. Again, not all of them, but many of the famous ones. The bottom left, it's what's called the bent pyramid. In the middle, bottom middle, you have what's called the red pyramid. I can't remember the name of the upper left one. I just kind of forgot. But basically, all I'm really trying to show is, well, there's one thing I want to show with the upper right one. But basically what I'm trying to show is that they build a lot of pyramids. It's not just those original three, but those big three that I showed earlier, that are known as the pyramids of Giza. That this idea of pyramid building really defines the Old Kingdom. It's definitely the structures we have left over from them that are just big and grand. But over time, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of stuff, a lot of stone to build these. And it's interesting how you see how some pyramids are just not as big because you realize that they just didn't have as much to put into it. You definitely see that with the big three pyramids, actually. The smallest one, we believe, wasn't built as big just because they just didn't have access to as much stuff. At least that's the thought process. But I also want to look at that top right picture now. That pyramid is actually the pyramid of Pepi II, the one that I talked about last time where he had the statue of himself sitting on his mom's lap. That's a very small, if you get the idea, that is small. And to all these things that we've seen of the Egyptians doing so far, when they do all this stuff that is just larger in life, that is a small pyramid. By the way, you see the very first pyramid in the background. That's what's interesting about this is the pyramid of Pepi II, from what I understand, is the last pyramid ever built. And then in the background, it's built fairly close to the first pyramid ever built, that of Jose. But the thought process here is the understanding of the theory in place is, they just stopped building pyramids because it just became harder and harder and harder to get the materials needed to build that. And there's also the idea that maybe they just decided to build the pyramid a little bit too late and just, we got to get this done before he passes away or whatnot. So, or maybe we also know the Civil War started up after Pepi II, so there was really no time to build something grandiose for him. Anyways, whatever the cause may be, it is interesting to think that the last pyramid is very small, but it is right next to, or very close to, the first pyramid ever built. So, now, this is a picture I like to show. Just gives an artist rendition of just the pyramids and their, when they're first built. Notice, if you see that there, we see the Sphinx. The Sphinx is leading up to the pyramid of Khafre. You see the different pyramids there. But you're also seeing a lot of the ideas of like canals and the irrigation, or the fact that the river is pretty close to them there. We think that, yeah, they did transport the big blocks of sandstone, were what they used to build the pyramids, at least the main part of it, up the river. Well, we also know they did drag them. They didn't have wheeled carts, from what we understand, but they had to drag them. And a lot of times these quarries are anywhere from like 18 and then sometimes 36 miles away. They've actually, from what I've read from geological studies, they actually can trace where the rocks came from for each of the pyramids. They can tell this rock came from this quarry, because I guess there's a certain, like, they each have their own, I don't know how to put this, like earth identification number on it. That's a dumb way to say it, I'm sorry. But you know where a rock comes from because the rock there kind of formed in a certain way, very different from rocks elsewhere, even though they might be the same rock, like sandstone here, sandstone there. That sandstone is just a little bit different over there than it is from the sandstone over here. So actually you can tell where they came from, so we can chart, okay, this is how far they would have had to bring that rock somehow to build the pyramids where they're built. Now, here's just a nice picture of the three. Again, I just show it because I haven't really shown a good picture of them the way they look today. But the other reason I like to show this picture is, well, the pyramid in the middle always seems like it's the biggest one. That's actually not the case. The pyramid in the far background is the biggest one, Khufu's pyramid. Khafre's pyramid is not as big. It's big, but not as big as Khufu's. It's believed, by the way, Khafre is the son of Khufu, and Menkaure, from what I understand, is the son of Khafre. So this is like granddad, dad, and son all in a row here. But when Khufu had his pyramid built, I mean, it's just massive. And really, they don't know. Again, according to records, it was something like 20 to 22 years it took to build that pyramid. But according to what we know, or the methods that we know they used to build the pyramids, it would have taken no less than like 40 some odd years to build it. So therefore, we just don't know how the pyramid's built. I'm going to talk about that in another slide here in a little bit. But these pyramids, like Pyramid of Khufu in the background, is huge. But Khafre, when Khafre built his, he wanted his to seem bigger than his dad's. I guess he knew that he couldn't get his bigger in volume than his dad's, but he wanted to seem bigger. So he built his on a little bit higher ground. I think it's something like 20 feet or 30 feet higher than the Khufu's pyramid. And then you have, man, I hope you're not hearing that in the background. There's a car alarm going on in the background. If it picks up, I'm sorry. So, or if the mic picks it up, I mean. But he also makes the slopes of the side of his pyramid more steep than Khufu's, therefore giving it more of this look of, it's bigger. Anyways, that's just kind of funny to note. Then you get to Menkare's. I guess he just said, I can't build one as big, so I'm just going to deal with the smaller one. Anyways, but that's what they look like. Now you also see this picture like this, and oh, by the way, if you notice the other pyramids in the background, you usually don't notice that much, but you see the pyramid of Jose in the background too, as well as, I can't remember the name of the other one next to it. So, but anyways, we always see pictures of it like this, where it's just off in the desert, so it seems like it's the middle of nowhere. Then I show you something like this, at least on the right-hand side, where the picture is being taken of it. No, civilization goes right up next to the pyramids. It's not in the middle of nowhere. Behind it is basically, but no, the city of Cairo is right there. At least I believe that's the city of Cairo. I hope I'm getting that right. But the picture I have on the left-hand side, I like pointing out just the idea that, well, the pyramids are tombs. They're meant to bury the king. So, this isn't the greatest picture. It's just one I got, and I really should try to see if there's one better. But they actually made the insides to be like mazes, and that doesn't look like the greatest maze ever. But I do know, and I've seen other pictures and diagrams of the pyramids where it's this idea that if you get in there, you're meant to get lost, and hopefully not to get out type stuff. It's one of the defense things for the pyramids. At the same time, the burial chambers were usually hidden behind fake walls. Everybody could try to come in and rob stuff. Well, if you rob something from the king in the pyramid, it's like you're physically taking it from him in his afterlife, so he won't have that anymore in the afterlife. So they wanted to protect that. So they built booby traps all over the place. And again, in class I showed a clip from the movie The Mummy, the one that was back from the 90s with Brendan Fraser, where these guys open up the thing and then their just faces kind of get ripped off a little bit. And that was based off of an actual booby trap you see from Egyptian times, where they actually learned how to pressurize sand and salt, well in this case salt, to where when it comes out it's like a shotgun blast right in your face. Tear you up pretty good and can be lethal within a foot or two. But they did everything to try to protect that. The thing is that over time people found it. All of these tombs were robbed over time. And the Egyptians found out, and this is one of the reasons we also believe, besides the idea of just running out of stuff, that we also believe they stopped building pyramids. It was just this big rob me sign. And if you do believe that you're buried with what you keep in what you're buried with is what you keep in the afterlife, that's a big deal. So they became, especially when they get the idea of the Valley of the Kings, they got to this idea of just hiding things a little bit more. So which I'll talk about the Valley of the Kings later. Again, I'm already going a bit over time, but I'm just going to keep going. I apologize. So we just kind of keep with the pyramids in just one segment. This is where I'm going to talk about the different theories on how the pyramids are built. This is showing the three more, how you put it, popular understandings of how the pyramids are built. Bottom left, you have this idea, and I showed this in a video clip as well, is where they build ramps up and around, so then they just drag those blocks up to the top, place them, go back down, and get another one. A very painstaking process. It takes forever. I mean, I can just imagine how long that takes. Although I also imagine that they were quite organized with it. Then you get on the right-hand side this idea that, well, they just build this ramp and made it longer and longer over time to where they could just always have at least somewhat of an easy grade getting up to the top of the pyramid. That's not too bad, of course. That ramp has to get longer and longer and longer each time. Upper left, you see this example where they think, well, maybe both ideas were right. By the way, all of these are simply just theories. Yes, they're based off of evidences, but still theory. And the idea that, like in all three of these, it's believed that there's no way the pyramids could have been built in the time, basically 20 to 22 years, that we believe that, or I shouldn't say believe, that we're told that from records we know that the pyramids were built. So that, of course, has gotten a lot of people thinking, and I'm just showing this one. This is the more unbelievable one, but it is the only theory that presents an idea of how the pyramids could have been built in basically 20 years. At least the guy that came up with this, who wasn't even an Egyptologist, from what I understand, just an engineer who just was he's really into this. He just wanted to figure it out. How could they have done it within like a 20-year period? And what he figured out, what he believes or theorizes, is that they put flotation devices on the blocks. And they literally floated the blocks up the side of the pyramid walls to the top and then placed them. And then they would drain the water off the top, refill it on the next level, and then just rinse and repeat. And so by doing this, and by the way, how they float it up is you just, I hope you're seeing this all right, but they enclose it so that if you push the rock underneath, or push the stone underneath, but it still has the flotation device on it, like you'd have a life vest, that you would then float up until you get, your buoyancy would take you up. So they'd have enough of a flotation device on top of there, but it would literally lift these incredibly heavy stones, some of them weighing over a ton, to the top of the water there. And then they would be just moved around like you see these two guys doing here to where they needed to go, and then just placed. And then, like I said, rinse and repeat. So there's just circumstantial evidence to this from what I understand. And no, although the documentary I watched on it, it was fascinating. It was really fun. But you definitely can't say this is the way they did it, because there's just not enough evidence yet, I guess you could say. But it is the only one that works. And the idea that it shows how they could have done it within 20 years. The Sphinx, I like talking about this a bit in class, but because this is going a bit longer, I'm just going to get into the next portion of this. I'm sorry. Although if you want to learn more about the Sphinx, please look it up. I'll be talking about this in class. I'm just not going to talk about it right now. What I'm showing now is just kind of inspirations that the pyramids have led to in other civilizations. When the Egyptians get conquered by the Nubians to the south, the Nubians are just enthralled by pyramids. They start building their own. Now those are tiny pyramids, but there's hundreds of those all over the deserts of the Sudan and then up around the Nile River Valley, where they start building little pyramids for themselves. The Romans built that nice little marble pyramid. From what I've learned, I believe that the Romans wanted to build a pyramid bigger than what the Egyptians did, but just never got around to it or just couldn't figure it out. One of the two. The Chichen Itza, what I'm showing off to the right, I like showing that right now because, according to Egyptologists and other historians and scholars, it's believed that there's a little bit more than coincidence about the pyramid building in the Americas as well as the pyramids in Egypt. That there might have been something that was somehow able to connect or communicate. I'm not saying like, they had radios or internet or anything like that, but the idea that maybe someone from Egypt got over to the Americas and brought with them the idea of building pyramids somehow. Maybe there were some explorers that somehow did that. Again, that's kind of far-fetched, but just so you know, that is what's being talked about a lot right now, at least from what I understand. But that's an example of a pyramid, built a lot like the step pyramid of Jose, by the way, where it's built in steps, in the Americas, in Mesoamerica. Now, modern-day representations. You have the Louvre Museum in the upper left, where they have this idea of this pyramid, and they also, by the way, there's a pyramid underneath it too. I'm not sure why they do it that way. From what I understand, they're doing this to represent the whole creation story behind the symbol of the pyramid, but they just don't have it going like this, like it should, but it's like this instead. Maybe there's more to that I just don't understand. Let me know if you understand that. You have the Luxor Motel off to the right in Vegas, based off the idea of the pyramids and kind of recreating that theme. Skyscraper, and I believe that's in San Francisco, where the architect said he wanted to honor, the first great builders in world history by making a skyscraper with kind of a pyramid top. One of my favorites is that arena. That's actually an arena in the bottom middle. That's oh god, I just forgot. Long Beach University, I believe. And I've never driven by that myself, but I've known a lot of people who've driven by that. I've even had students who said, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I drove by that. And yeah, it was terrible to drive by. You drive by at the wrong time of day and it just blinds you. But again, they're trying to copy that whole idea of the luminescence. The pyramid on the bottom right, that's actually found in Salt Lake City. Just a tiny little pyramid. I can't remember what the use was for. I'm blanking on it right now. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. But at this point, I do need to finish this video. I'm just talking about the pyramids, why they came about, the reason for the first one, that whole sense of gratitude, which is interesting to note. And then you get just the inspirations of the pyramid forever. And if I haven't said this yet, you do need to know this. Pyramids were the tallest structures on Earth until the French built the Eiffel Tower. And then since then, we've just been building buildings bigger and bigger and bigger. So that being said, I'll see you guys in the next lesson.